For over 40 years, Altus has incorporated ideas of classical aesthetics and modern science into our handcrafted flute designs. Years of research and development have allowed Altus to combine the highest quality materials with a range of flute-making techniques, culminating in a range that are played and sought after by the world's finest players. The founder and chief designer of Altus Flutes, Mr. Shuichi Tanaka, is a true example of a modern Renaissance man. Every Altus flute reflects his passion to produce the finest playing flutes with exceptional materials and artistry. In 1977, Mr. Tanaka met British flute player William Bennett, one of the world's foremost musicians and a leading authority on flute scales. Their shared interests in music, culture, and flute making developed into a friendship and close collaboration. This partnership led to the development of the Altus scale, an integral part of our extraordinary instruments. Years of study, joined by a legendary group of musicians, led to the birth of Altus Flutes. 1981 marks the beginning of Altus Flutes. Altus was established to produce world-class handmade flutes tailored for professional musicians. In the first decade, Altus rolled out a complete family of instruments, including concert flutes, alto flutes, and a bass flute. Additionally, following a request from Mr. Trevor Y., Altus introduced the Flute d'Amore into the product line. As the brand started to expand and reach more players, Altus's Japanese factory, nestled in the mountains of Azumino, officially opened in 1990. Designed by Mr. Tanaka himself, the beautiful factory marked a new era for Altus Flutes. A group of experienced Taiwanese technicians followed Mr. Tanaka back to his hometown, where he began passing down years of knowledge and skills in flute making. In 1991, Altus released a new range, as part of which coin silver flutes were relaunched as sterling silver flutes. The PS model made its debut in 1999. The AL model was released in 2000 as the Altus signature model. Indeed, the letters AL stand for Altus Limited. Mr. Tanaka's knowledge in flute making, as well as his natural instinct and ability to make flutes that suit all players, becomes integral to the mindset of all Altus technicians. Traveling between Taiwan and the Japan factory, Mr. Tanaka continues to play an important part in flute production through training the technicians and passing along his skills and many years of experience.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's special forum with our esteemed speaker. I'm Eugenie, Product and Artist Relations Manager at Altus Flutes. I'm delighted to be your host today, and let's begin with our global new Altus online product launch. Joining me today is our esteemed guest speaker, a distinguished flutist and our valuable consultant at Altus Flutes, Mr. Denis Bouriakov.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
Hi. It's so nice to have you here.
It's so nice to be here.
So Denis here is not only an influential flute player, but he also left an indelible mark in our brand product development. So today we are very delighted to invite Denis here to have a conversation with us and share some stories, journey with Altus and the flutes and our new concert flute series. And it is crucial to acknowledge the vision of our beloved product consultant, the late William Bennett, who is also affectionately known as WIB, and also the co-founder and chief designer of Altus Flutes, Mr. Shuichi Tanaka. Both of their vision for improving the flute intonation is what it's all about today. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's welcome Denis here to share some stories with us. Could you share some highlights from your musical journey with Altus Flutes and how it has shaped your experience as a flute player.
Yes, well, I've been playing on Altus Flutes now for over 20 years. Actually, I can now that it's 2024, that makes it 23 years or so I've been with Altus. When I came to London to study with William Bennett, I had a different flute. I had a student model instrument. I'm not going to mention the brand, but when I started studying with Wim, 3-4 months later, he told me that it wasn't good enough. The instrument, especially the intonation, was one of the issues, and that's one of Altus's strongest points. So Wim told me, okay, why don't you borrow this? And I tried one of his flutes, and it was open G sharp in a different system. He said, you can borrow it for as long as you like, but you have to change to open G sharp system. So I said, sure, because I was not in a position to buy a new instrument at that point, especially. So that's how I got a prototype of PS model. It was a new model back then. That was 2000, I think, November or so. And
1999, 2000, yeah.
Yeah, so Wim had this PS flute, which was made at 4/4/5 pitch. So it was quite a bit shorter visibly. And I borrowed that instrument, and that became my flute for quite a few years until actually I got my job at the Met. Eventually, it stayed with me until 2009, that instrument. I still have the flute at home. It's one of my spares. But so I've been playing on PS model since late 2000. So it's been over 23 years. I had this exact model, and now I'm on my third one of those flutes. Second and third, I played the most. But it did shape me a lot as a musician, because the first thing I found when I started playing the flute after the one I had was C sharp was too low. And I said, oh my God, the C sharp is so low. I told Webb, I remember in the lesson, and he said, look in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror when I was playing for C sharp. I was going down. I was adjusting the intonation. And he said, you have good ear, so you're not even noticing how much you are adjusting to get to the pitch. But he said, of course we can adjust. And that's the thing. There are many flute makers, they all have different scales. And we can adjust to any scale. It's not a question. But the important thing is how much are you adjusting? Is that, are you spending that energy on something else that you could be spending on, other things? So unnecessary adjustments are tiring, and they take away focus from other things. So anyway, I've been playing on that flute, and within a couple of months, I unlearned all the habits of adjusting, and I got used to that. It's a much easier scale to play with. So I've never changed the brand since then. I've tried a few flutes. I was curious in gold flutes for a while, and I always came back to silver. I even tried the golden Altus flute for a while, but and I loved it. But for me, PS model really resonates with me personally.
Well, what qualities of the Altus flute back then attracted you the most, and how they contribute to your musical expression?
Well, first thing you hear, of course, is the tone quality. And the tone quality comes from, I'm sure flute makers know more about this, from many things, but it's not just the scale itself, but how the instrument is made. And I think Altus has a very particular tone, which I love, the quality of the sound. And, in my teaching, following William Bennett's teaching, I talk a lot about harmonics being in tune. So how to tune the tone, but that's only possible if the instrument itself has the harmonics in tune. So what makes the beautiful tone is that, because there are some instruments that have the center of the tone can be a little off. It comes from head joint, I think, a lot as well. But it's nicely centered in Altus, so it's easy to make that beautiful sound, that is alive. And that was the biggest attraction for me.
Oh, okay. That comes all the way back to their development vision of Altus flutes. It is very important to produce a sound at the correct harmonic structure at the correct pitch. So this is what Wib and Tanaka-san has been working on. And even until today, we're still in pursuit of that goal. So can you tell us about your Altus flute you currently play on, and what specifications it is with, and how it complements your playing style?
Sure. So I still, as I mentioned, I play on a PS model that I believe stands for powdered silver. That's the technology behind it, but the important thing is it's 997 silver, so it's very, very pure. And I think it has a very different sound from regular silver. So I love the tone depth it has, because Altus has, of course, 925 models, 925 silver, and also the Britannia silver. What's the number on that? 956 or 965? I'm not sure.
958. 958 Britannia.
Okay, close enough. The PS silver has something very different. I don't know if it's because of the way they make it with powder, but it has this particular depth in tone, which attracted me. And so I play on one of these instruments.
Well, the production method is traditionally known as powder metallurgy. But the official name for that is internal oxidation method. And actually, this is just to make really pure silver into a rigid tube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because many people asked me at some point, even if my flute was platinum, but I was like, no, I'm personally not a fan of the tone quality of platinum, because it's a little bit too brutal. But I think because of the projection you get on this instrument, it projects very well PS. So people were asking me if it was platinum, but a long time ago. So one unusual thing about my flute is I do not have E mechanism. And the reason for that is because I play open G sharp system. So on this system, this is the G sharp and this is G. So it's the original Boehm design. You don't need the doubling key in the back.
Yeah.
That's
you can see the difference.
So you can always recognize that instantly by just looking at the back. That means these two keys, G sharp and G key, are completely independent. So it makes it unnecessary to have E mechanism. I just press it manually here. So the fingering for top E, like Boehm design, it should be like this. And that's what E mechanism does. So I can turn it on and off by doing this. This is the system William Bennett played on, and as I mentioned earlier, the reason I switched was Wib. At first, just borrowing the flute, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stay with that. It took a couple of weeks to switch. It's not actually that difficult, but and I thought, I can always go back. But then later, I thought,
you can do two system, right?
I can play closed G sharp relatively well, but not Chandeliers, but I can play Mozart. But it is a better system, actually, and it should have been the one everybody would be playing on. That was the Boehm's design, but the closed G sharp system was made as a temporary solution for people switching from earlier flutes. Anyway, long history. Not always the best design wins, and this is one of the cases. And I'm happy and proud to be playing on the best design, which is open G sharp.
Yeah, open G sharp is a much more logical system.
So Theobald Boehm's great grandson, Ludwig, I think his name Ludwig Boehm, he contacted me and said, "I'm so happy you play open G sharp system. I'm keeping a track of all open G sharp players in the world." So he has a list because he's trying to promote the system and tell people that this is the instruments we should be playing on. But once it's in millions, it's really hard to change, of course.
True. You have to change your mindset, and some like motions that are already automatic.
But that part is, of course, surprisingly, that only takes a couple of weeks. Nobody believes me, but it's true. And Wib and Michi, who have done the process, they said the same. Acoustically, it's better too, not to have a key on the other side of the instrument. They're all all here, and you don't have doubling key for the same, so there's no double action. Anytime I pick up a closed G sharp, I feel that double action when you trill and things like that. So it is a mechanically more simple design and better.
Yeah, and the less tone holes on a flute, the better structure a flute is. So open G sharp.
I think especially having those two holes in the same place takes half the tube. It's a weaker point in the body of the flute. So it's
okay. Thank you for sharing. With a wealth of experience and expertise, Denis has played a pivotal role in providing invaluable insights to enhance and performance of our new instruments. So now let's delve into the exciting details of the new flute designs with his unique perspective. Can you provide some insights into Altus Flute's core value in product development?
Well, it's again, harmonics being in tune and the scale, which was developed together with William Bennett a long time ago when I think Tanaka-san and Webb, Tanaka-san started the company, but he was working together with Webb, because Webb, if you, those of you who probably met him in person, you could see him always adjusting the scale of all of his flutes. He would be moving holes, carving out some silver, and putting some putty, millet put. It's what plumbers use, kind of plasticine with you combine two parts of it, and you shape it, mold it, you put it in, let it dry, and it becomes like a rock. So he used that to move the holes, the tone holes. And a lot of students who came to his summer school, he would move, especially the C sharp, because C sharp is the biggest difference. I think when you first pick up an Altus flute, you will notice it's a lot lower than any other brand. And there's a good reason for that, because it's too sharp usually. That was one of the biggest things. The B, I think Webb started working also with Cooper scale, and then he developed eventually his own scale. And then I think Altus adapted William Bennett's scale and then also altered it as they went along. So it's a combined effort of many people. But B is sharper, which I like also, especially. So if you ever try an Altus flute for the first time, see how you feel playing, for example, B and C sharp, those notes. That will be the biggest difference in that interval. It's very easy. You don't anymore feel like it's so wide, because B is low and C sharp is high on most flutes you try nowadays. So this new updated model, which we're talking about today, I think one of the big mechanical differences is the cup diameter over the tone hole, which has been increased. I don't know the millimeters numbers, but it actually visibly, you can see it, because I have an older PS and the new one, and I can visually see that it is wider. And Tanaka-san explained that it's much more stable for the pads, right? Because the pad tension is different if you're on the edge or a little bit closer to the middle. So that was the reason, because he experimented so much with diameters and how the pads behave. And I must say it feels very stable, because the pads cover very well. And it's not a small upgrade, because, I remember one time Webb said, when you try a flute, the pads are almost more important than the flute. He said, when you try, you're getting the impression of the pads a lot, how they cover and how it feels, the mechanism as well. So you cannot underestimate the pads' importance. So I noticed that it feels very stable. When you play, you don't have to push hard. It covers very evenly and feels very secure. So I really enjoyed that. When you play, especially something very fast, it feels easier. It's like having a slightly faster car. Not that you have to use it all the time, but sometimes. No, it's important how it feels when you trill, when you play. It's not only for fast things, the general feeling. So that's one of the mechanical updates. I think the head joint had some improvements as well. So Tanaka-san designed the new cut, and it has better projection and a wider range of colors.
Yes. And also it can be compatible with more players because the original S cut is you need to have a certain playing style or you need to have a certain embouchure. The new cut, which is the new S cut, you can try it and you will definitely feel the projection of it in comparison to the previous one.
Definitely.
Yeah. How are innovations this time enhance the playing experience in general?
Well, actually, I'm switching back and forth between the two PSs I play all the time. So the new one, which is still being played in, because any instrument you need to play for a number of months before it reaches its peak, I think, which this flute has not yet, but it's definitely, there's some things I like in it better than my old PS, which I've played for 14 years. That's very well played in and the vibrations are in there in the body. I noticed it has a bigger body, like feel to it when you play the flute, so it projects a little easier. I don't have to push, but this impression is just from me playing. I'm not sure from outside if the change is as big as I feel, but I definitely love the new design.
Yeah. Tanaka-san always say that the first time you try a new flute, just play it softly, not too
Aggressively,
loud or yeah.
which is the opposite.
Don't try
of
to
what
force
most
it.
people do. That's interesting. When you hear people trying flutes and conventions and things, everybody first thing they try is Chandelinos and Hachatoyan Concerto.
Yeah.
Which
And
I
that
think
really beefy sound they want to reach.
well, because I think it comes from nowadays. If you're an orchestra player, for example, there's what I call inflation of the volume of orchestral playing. So all the orchestras are playing louder and louder in general. It's been a trend for a while. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a fact, so all the instruments are getting designed in a way that can project more, not only flutes. And I think the oboists changed the way they cut reeds to get more projection as well. So in the end, it's I found, for example, I have a wooden flute, which I love the sound as well, but I don't use it as often as I was expecting in the orchestra because I found that the orchestra is quite loud a lot of the time. And some conductors encourage it, some conductors control it better. So it's every week is different depending on who is in charge, who's there. But I noticed the same because I was talking to some European friends of mine, and they said the same thing happens even in the best European orchestras. They play bigger. So that's why when people try flutes, I think it's one of the things in everybody's mind. They instantly, when you have good feedback, you feel, oh, it's a better sound. But then it's fine, but you have to, as Tanaka-san says, you have to try and see what's the soft color of the instrument. And that is where the true soul of the instrument is, because projection is just that, it's the volume. But the soul and the tone quality is when you play softer and when you play pianissimo and it's still vibrating. Because I found that with some makers, there are a few I can think in particular, they're very good at projecting it, louder than Altus. But once you play below a certain point, mezzo piano, pianissimo, it sounds a little dead and it loses the quality. And that is a very important part. So I think when you're trying an Altus, yes, see how the projection is, which is excellent, I think, on this, especially the updated line. But try also the softer.
The diversity.
Exactly,
the diversity of different tone colors is also our stronghold.
It comes from the same concept of harmonics being in tune, because Tanaka-san is obsessed, I know, with that, how the flute vibrates, so the harmonics are easier put in tune with your angling, how you put the air in the instrument.
Yes. So thank you for sharing your experience trying our new flutes and in comparison with the old. So to wrap things up, in refining our concert flutes, it all comes down to one core concept. We want to elevate the intonation and projection for an enhanced musical expression. Having firsthand experience with our new concert flutes, could you give us some final thoughts about continuing to explore the flutes of Altus Flutes?
Yeah, well, actually, I try all the models of Altus every year when I come to Japan. During the tour we do, I test 50 to 60 flutes. Usually they take them all out. But already better than the beginning, no? And it's very interesting to see this journey Altus is going through, because it's constantly improving. And I think that's one very important point for any flute company, not to stop at something that works and sells well, but try to constantly improve on that. And I think Altus is definitely succeeding. The head joints are getting better. The projection is better. Intonation was always excellent, but it's still there are still minor changes to the scale. So I definitely encourage. I think this update is one of the biggest. What was this year with the key cup size, So I think even if you have tried Altus a few years ago, I would encourage to try it again now and see how you feel, because I think they keep constantly improving. So I think you'll have fun.
Exactly. Yeah, you will have fun and explore different silver materials, and also the pads are more stable. So go visit your local distributor or Altus dealer. Try some of our new flutes. So how would you describe the impact of your association with Altus on your career as a flute player? And in what ways has it shaped your musical journey?
Well, it's a tricky question, a complex question. I started with Wim for 5 years, and he was my mentor and hero. And he was also the soul of Altus company, I think, together with Tanaka-san. So for me, this connection is very dear. I feel like it's connection to Wim as well, the Altus Flutes, because he was such a big part of the creation of this. So for me, just emotionally, spiritually, it's a very important connection. And meeting people from Altus every year in Japan, I meet Tanaka-san every summer. And this in 2023, I was lucky to meet him twice in Japan and in Taiwan. So of course that, we always have conversations about flutes and Wim and everything. So it definitely is a big part of my musical life, this connection with Altus. And I come visit the factory sometimes in Azumino. And in September 2023, I was in the factory, in the KHS factory in Taipei, in Taiwan. So that was really fascinating to see the whole process. I didn't know that a lot of models are first made there. The parts were prepared in Taiwan and then shipped to Japan and assembled for handmade flutes and other flutes. Anyway, but for me, yes, musically, of course, it shaped me because of my tone is my identity, and my identity, it comes also with the particular instrument I'm playing. When I try another flute, another head joint, it's a change, and you don't know, is this where I want to go? So I'm always exploring. I'm always trying, especially head joints. I try many things, and I play different head joints as well. But Altus is always there. I change the head sometimes to get certain things. In some pieces are suited better with this and better with that. But past 23 years,
players.
My PS flute is always in my hands. So.
Yay! I feel that people who are connected with Wib, no matter how long, how brief, they always have the same positive feedback for him, and they always say he influences their entire life, or
definitely
meeting him is a life-changing experience. So I can totally feel his legacy passing on generation after generation, and from flutist to flutist.
No, I was just saying Wib was an inspiration for all of us, of course.
Yeah, Wib is our inspiration, and we hope that today's talk is also inspiring for you. And thank you for joining us on today's talk to see our most recent innovation. It's been really delightful working with you, Denis.
Likewise, thank you very much for having me today.
So as we conclude this insightful session with our guest speaker, Altus Global Ambassador, Denis Bouriakov, we want to thank you all for joining in today's global launch, and thank you for your all-time support for Altus Flutes.
Thank you.
So Denis, shall we say goodbye to everyone with what Wib always loved to say?
Sure.
Happy fluting! Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Denis.
Bye, Jenny.
From principal flute players to soloists, from world-leading orchestras to prestigious conservatories, you can find Altus players bringing the Altus sound to life. Appearances in numerous original motion picture soundtracks and TV documentaries have also helped make the Altus sound ubiquitous, thanks to the support of the recording flute artists. But what is so special about the Altus sound? A flute scale contributes to the overall tonal quality and harmonic structure, and the Altus scale meets players' requirements and preferences. The scale is the culmination of years of research and development in collaboration with the late Mr. William Bennett. The core value has always been simple: to produce a sound with the right harmonic structure at the right pitch. The meticulous design of the Altus flute and its uncompromised scale offers excellent intonation, carefully tuned harmonics, and balanced registers. The resulting product is highly recommended and desired by players. Altus offers a selection of exceptional materials for players to choose from, each with its own character. This allows each player to choose one that is best suited for their individual preferences. The differences in the density, hardness, and ductility of each material naturally lead to differences in the flute-making process, maximizing the overall performance in terms of tone and the harmonic structure. Seam tube and powder metallurgy are two processing methods that Altus has, bringing about benefits to not only the sound quality, but also the durability of the instrument. The vibration of the flute tube affects the sound and is influenced by the ribs and key posts. All Altus flutes are equipped with a wide rib rather than the conventional style, which is set back from the tone holes. This kind of design significantly reduces unwanted vibration from the keys and accentuates the characteristics of the various tube materials. As well as the meticulously designed scale and carefully selected materials, Altus has poured years of research into designing reliable flutes that flute players can enjoy for a lifetime. Flute key mechanisms consist of rods, keys that rotate around the rod, and posts that support them. Altus adopted a combination of a tapered convex part and a conical concave part on the king post. The connection of the parts becomes a line rather than a surface, achieving both precise construction and smooth key action. In addition to our structural design features, Altus uses the very finest materials on tone hole walls, springs, and key pipes for improved playability and durability. Altus uses gold solder for the tone holes on handmade soldered models, maintaining the long-term structural integrity and performance of the flute. In addition, the unique Altus SP1 springs, made from an alloy of precious metals, including silver, gold, and platinum, provide excellent elasticity, which results in a light and responsive touch to the mechanism. Moreover, our all-silver models have key pipes made from powder metallurgy pure silver. The characteristics of this material contribute to a longer lifetime, as it is stronger and less prone to twisting, allowing for a more reliable mechanism. Combining fine materials, classical flute-making ideals with modern techniques, the Altus flutes are highly acclaimed and endorsed by renowned principal flute players and performing artists around the world. The name Altus, Latin for highness and profoundness, was chosen to reflect our core value to produce world-class handmade flutes tailored for flute players. A carefully designed scale, masterfully curated selection of materials, state-of-the-art tubing methods, and contemporary precision standards produce the remarkable sound of the Altus flute.
I'm Michael Cox. I'm Principal Flute in the BBC Symphony Orchestra, the London Mozart Players, the Academy St Martin's and the London Sinfonietta, and I teach at the Royal Academy of Music in London. Reflecting on my journey with Altus, I went to Just Flutes in London, the Altus dealers. I was just trying everything, not thinking too hard, just reacting. And then suddenly there was a little knock at the door, and this lady came in who used to sell the sheet music there. And she said, "Michael, whichever that one is, that's the one." So I looked to see what it was, who made it, and it said Altus on it. The thing I'm always looking for in a flute is, can it do everything I need it to do? The most amazing blank canvas that intrinsically has a core sound that I absolutely love. This is the canvas on which I paint, and so I don't want a limited palette. Music expresses everything known to humanity and to emotion. It's so deeply, deeply rich in expression. So therefore, I want to have an instrument that can communicate all those different things that might filter into your imagination or come from your own personal experience. The thing about Altus generally is the overall excellence. You've got the most phenomenal mechanism. It's got really, really good tuning scale. It will respond with articulation superbly. You've got the most beautiful, beautiful sound world. But also it's got a fairly ridiculous dynamic range when you need it. And I love the fact, I almost think of it like a little spaceship, where there's a central hub, which is my flute, and then is completely prepared to go on adventures down all these different avenues, and then come back to this gorgeous place in the middle. On an Altus, I just have to say, I just feel so comfortable. I mean, is it familiarity? Is it just the fact that it's so beautifully designed? I love the aesthetic of it. For instance, this ring we have around here. And to my mind, this new change with the lip cut in the head joint has made a fundamental difference. So the way you use your airstream, the way it resists, the way it uses the air to create the vibration is quite extraordinary, I think. And that whole business about it having incredible palette range is the thing I'd really, really like to reinforce. You've got a top quality flute here, but you've also got a sort of adventure playground. You know, we all have a song inside ourselves. We have something, some core thing we want to express and sing from. And it's so important for everyone to find a vehicle for that really matches their song. And to my mind, that's what I love about these things, is that you can find a way to achieve any colouring of your choice. So my new flute and me, I think it's just love, basically.
My name is Alena Walentin. I'm an artistic director of Moonsummer Concert, which is a festival of music and dance in Denmark. I also teach at the Royal Conservatoire The Hague, Royal Danish Academy of Music, Royal Birmingham Conservatoire, and teach the second study at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. I've been playing on Altus PS ever since I was 17, so that is more than half of my life. And I've been loving every single day of it. When I was 17, my PS flute was sent to me from Japan directly. And when I tried it, it was just like love from first sight. It was unlike the flutes I've tried before, certainly, and very much in its tone reminded me of the gorgeous, gorgeous sound that I heard in the recording when I was 11, and the recording was of William Bennett. What I loved immediately about the flute is that it gave me space to be creative. I could explore the darker colors, go into those very juicy harmonies with possibility to really go deeper and almost find the tones of different instruments. So up until the moment when I got this second generation PS flute, I've been playing on my PS and couldn't be happier. I love everything about this flute. It has even tonal balance, sensitive mechanics, exceptional build quality, and vast amount of colors. It really is the flute that can do everything, and there is no limit to what you can do with it. These new flutes are a natural revolution and refinement of already much loved instruments. I really know of no other flutes that have a scale like these do. I think the keycap designs, as well as changes in the head joint and the scale, it all made the sound even more resonant. I'm extremely excited that it's not only the top models that had the revolution, but a range of the instrument from Altus, and it's extremely exciting just to try them all. I found that Altus global team has been basically my second family. I really admire them for the quality that they stand for. They feel so much pride in what they do, and they have so much passion in it that it is contagious. When you play this instrument, you really feel how much care and pride they've put into the smallest details. I feel William Bennett would have been very happy to see these gorgeous instruments. If the instrument sets a wall that you can't really go beyond, and that sets a limit to what you can do musically. But when you have the instrument that is limitless in its possibilities, then that's like the biggest gift there is.
I'm always cautious when I try new flutes. So it's like, I don't know, it's sort of diving into a pool of water. You're not quite sure whether it's safe to swim or not. It was quite quick that I went, oh, I think this is rather special. But then I always reserve judgment for a while, explore, and then just gradually I was thinking, this is the one for me, I think.
Like you, I also reserve my judgment until a bit later usually, but it really did feel like home, you know, trying this new flute. The things that have been worked on have really made a big difference to the resonance of the instrument, and it really felt like it was shining straight away. But like with every flute, I found that it needed to be played on a little bit, of course it being a brand new instrument, just so that the flute also gets attached to us as well,
absolutely.
and used to how much air we put through and everything.
I mean, the whole thing is an amazing relationship between the musician and
It really is.
what they use, isn't it? The thing that their voice speaks through. And so I always think it talks to you and you talk to it, and you come to a lovely arrangement together.
It's very much like a relationship, isn't it? Or a friendship there.
And yes, I agree. I think we've just found a very beautiful new partner.
Were there any specific changes that you felt were really striking in comparison to your old flute? Did I understand correctly that you used to play AL as well?
Yes, I started with the Altus range on AL, but most recently I've been playing on the PS.
Okay.
But I've come through a whole long path through from Louis Lot flutes, which I used to play when I was young, as many people in England did at the time. And the ALs are much closer. I mean, they're made to the design of Louis Lots using the traditional methods. And so it did doubly feel like coming home. But I've found this new version of the AL, for me, for the sort of sound world I'm coming from, just does that blend of brilliance, but the mellowness as well.
I think probably one of the biggest changes for me was implemented on the head joint, or specifically it was the lip plate, and I find that it's more responsive now. Bigger amount of colors on offer that one can explore. I find that with these flutes that the more you give, the more it gives back. Up until I've received this flute, it's just been PS for me. Of course, it's different flute conventions. I've tried a few different flutes, but really for me it was just, well, no, I couldn't find anything better than Altus is.
It's your voice.
Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
And your instrument.